Bienvenidos, bienvenidas. Welcome to our channel, Aportes Afrocostarricenses y Diaspóricos. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share.
Thank you, and thank you, ladies, for inviting me to speak about emancipation. I'm not a historian, but certainly as a teenager growing up in the 70s amidst the Black Power movement, which was really my introduction to understanding my life and my politics and my philosophy as a Black woman from the Caribbean, and the fight that people were engaging in to ensure that Blackness was celebrated. I fully understand why we must not only celebrate Emancipation Day, but why it is important for us to make it into a national celebration where people come together and, pay homage to the sacrifices that our ancestors made in order for us to exist in this world and enjoy some of the privileges that we do enjoy now. And therefore, for me, this whole notion of emancipation takes on a kind of psychological understanding around the significance of Black people in the world and the need to constantly assert our positions, because there are many people who will not allow us to be who we are. Yes, I'm proud being raised in a place like Trinidad and Tobago, and it's given even greater significance as I found out that Trinidad was the first place in the region to make Emancipation Day a national holiday. Yes, and yes. I understand why Trinidad would do that, because it's a place where we have had a legacy of a number of colonizers from different places. And as a result, in order to assert ourselves, to break the chains of oppression, we did that through the form of celebration and pageantry. Yes, and for us, this whole notion of mass celebration and people coming together, that collective notion of celebration and resistance and rebellion is so important for us in Trinidad, but also in the Caribbean. Yes, but we see it so much more in Trinidad through the whole notion of festivals. Carnival started, during slavery, and it was a way for the slaves to come out and rebel in their limited way, yes, and celebrate life in spite of all the hardship and rebel against the confinement, and that's such a soft word for what we call slavery. But nevertheless, we have had that history, we have had that legacy of being able to, in spite of the challenges and the oppression, find a way to showcase who we are and get together and celebrate. And for me, Emancipation celebration represent that recognition of, the abolition of slavery, how Africans were able to become free in, as Nancy said, in a very limited way, because that whole notion of freedom is in my terms and as a psychologist, I see it as a very artificial kind of term. Yes, because how free are we? Yeah, as we look at some of the oppressive structures that are still in place that deny particularly Black people the freedom to grow and develop, yes, socially, financially, psychologically, as they want to, yes, because of those notions of keeping us tied up and doing the biddings of other people, yes? So, yes, we celebrate emancipation and getting and breaking those chains of slavery, but we have so much more work to do in terms of really being free. And as Nancy mentioned, the global situation, particularly coming out of the United States in more recent time, show us that, you know, there's so much more work to be done, especially for young people, yes, to say that our lives matter. You cannot treat us in particular ways. So we must keep the celebration of emancipation and what it represented, the struggles, the oppression, and opening the doors for Black people to begin to live their lives and make their contribution to the global space. It must be a reality. But more importantly, I think as we engage in these celebrations, we must show our young people and teach them the history of what happened to us. Because without that understanding, they take the privileges they have for granted. And sometimes they may not necessarily understand some of the discrimination that may come their way. Yeah. So we need to give them that foundation so that they understand when they encounter certain kinds of behaviors that are particularly discriminating, that they know where it is coming from and they can come up with strategies to ensure that they counteract it. Yes? But growing up in Trinidad and being exposed not only to the emancipation, but the emphasis on independence, as you know, for the first national leaders and the emphasis on national development and breaking away from the colonizers was so important for a young Black girl that we can stand with our heads high, that we exist in this part of the world where we have pride in who we are as Black people, yes? That we are governed by people who look like us. I think that's important, so that when I step out into the world, I don't have to cower, you know? I don't have to apologize for being Black. I am Black and I move forward, yes? Yeah. And for me, growing up in Trinidad, that's what I got, yeah? That pride of being a Black person, it just told me what the significance of my role in the world, you know, that it mattered, you know, and it helped me to just gain confidence and move forward as a Black person. Here I am, and deal with it, yes? So that whole notion of emancipation was really inculcated, you know, in Trinidad, inculcated by my parents who understood that whole notion of, of, of Blackness and celebrating Blackness, yes? And I wanted to relate to you all a little story that one of my former schoolmates, we all went to this school called Holy Name Convent, which originally was really designed to educate white women, girls, yes, because it still is a single-sex school. And of course, our principal was a nun, a white nun, yeah. But I heard recently, as in the 70s, when I first went, early 70s, when I first went to Holy Name, there were a number of young, particularly Black women who were teaching history and literature, yes? And they had a reunion recently, and one of those teachers said to us that the principal, who was, we call her Mother Bernadette, deliberately handpicked those women to teach us because she recognized that the composition of the school was changing, and she wanted the young Black girls to see faces like themselves, educating them. I always knew she was a visionary, but I never knew that part of the story, yes? So there have been other people from other races who have come in to ensure that we develop the pride and the intelligence and the ability to function, you know, in a variety of ways, yes? And when I heard that, I really appreciated, you know, that educator who had the foresight to recognize the structural differences, yes? The racial differences that can be created. And to say, yes, listen, you have value too, you have worth, and we are bringing people in here who are going to allow you to see that worth in action so that you have something to model, yes? And for me, there have been many people in my life who have worked as such models in strengthening the pride I have in Blackness and in Black culture and in Black people, yeah? And I think we have to teach our young people the history so they walk with that same consciousness that we have, right? That we don't have conversations around our hair if we choose to wear it natural. Yes? Yeah? It is nobody's business. Don't question it. If you want to question it, go in your little corner and do so. Yeah? Right? And that we have choices that we don't have to apologize for because in this skin, yeah, right? And that we are proud with all the varying shades of Blackness, right? Proud to be who we are, and that and to recognize that all our Black lives matter in each other. And Emancipation Day must show that every year, that the collective is the only way to move forward, yeah, to stand and take up the place that is ours. And